Your next question, question 2, why something rather than nothing? This is a fantastic question. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic philosophical question. But the questions you need to be asking in this kind of thing, they need to differentiate between an atheistic and a theistic position. They need to be questions that are problems for atheists and not for theists. Surely. Otherwise, what's it gained you by asking them? This is an example of a question that's a problem for everybody. I've got a problem question there. Why is there something rather than nothing? You have a problem question. Why would God create something rather than nothing? This is especially intractable for you because God is the God that you worship is omniscient. He already knows everything. There's nothing to gain by creating anything. So that's a problem for you. But you've got another question, another philosophical question as well. Why a God rather than no God? I've got one tough question. You've got two tough questions to answer here. This isn't a question that's relevant to this debate about maintaining an atheistic position. In fact, however tough that question becomes for me, it remains equally as tough for you, and it has this added icing on the top of this why a God rather than no God question. So I'm just going to leave that one unanswered because I don't really need to tackle that one. Okay, we're going to talk about questions 3 and 4 together. Where is your morality from, and how did morality evolve? Well, I believe morality did evolve, but I don't believe that you can just attribute the complexities of our morality just to basic innate genetic predispositions. On the evolutionary front, well, I mean, this is such a complicated subject. I mean, how long are we going to spend on this kind of thing? We know about kin altruism, we know about reciprocal altruism, we know about the just basically most moral decisions. Murder. Why don't you murder people? Well, because evolution would very, very quickly, and this doesn't require a group mechanic like you seem to be suggesting, purely from self-interest. If I go around trying to murder people, I'm not going to last very long, because people have a natural predisposition not to be murdered. People tend to respond quite violently if you try and murder them. Why do they do that? Well, for very good evolutionary reasons. Anybody who didn't respond in that kind of way would have got wiped out somewhere along the line. Their ancestors would have got wiped out. If you just passively allow people to stab you to death, then you ain't going to last very long. So we all have this knee-jerk reaction, as all animals do. If you try and beat a cat or a dog to a pulp, it won't just sit there and take it, it'll fight back. Humans do the same thing. So there's very good evolutionary reasons why we don't all go around trying to murder each other without any kind of altruism whatsoever. But you've then got these ideas of kin altruism and reciprocal altruism, which I'm not going to go into now. On top of that, we have this evolution of empathy, and I think this is a very, very crucial factor in human morality, is the evolution of empathy. You know, human beings are almost consumed by an empathetic desire. I can hardly mention anything to you without you putting yourself in my... We do this all the time. We put ourselves in other people's positions. If I tell you a story of how I bent my finger right back, it'll screw you up immediately. If I start telling you about a tragic situation where something dreadful's happened to me, you'll immediately put yourself in my position. We do this all the time. And this is a driving force behind our morality. It's something that we cannot escape from. What's very interesting in this is that if you work out logically where your base evolutionary desires, what would be in your interest from your base evolutionary desires, you can generally work it out. For example, with murder, I've explained murder to you. If you look at things from an empathetic level, you arrive almost every single time at the same conclusion. If you look at an empathetic level, well, if I was you, I wouldn't want to be murdered. So they actually reinforce. The interesting thing is that if they didn't reinforce, it's a damn good job they did reinforce, because if they didn't, as soon as our ancestors had started to develop the very first leanings towards an empathetic response, to being able to put ourselves outside of ourselves in other people's positions and to be able to look in at ourselves as well, that would have immediately been snuffed out if that hadn't, broadly speaking, corresponded with the general altruistic, reciprocal altruistic, kin altruism push of your genes. they have to work in harmony for that to have worked. Now, we're very fortunate they did. You can imagine for some other animals that are much more solitary animals that really wouldn't work for them, that they wouldn't actually be able to evolve the same kind of empathetic response, because it would run contrary. It would lead them to do things other than that which they were already doing, and that which they were already doing, they would be doing for very good reasons. So clearly the empathetic response wouldn't be in their interests. But for us, I think the empathetic thing is a huge and crucial factor, and it's not something that you can overlook. Once we evolved that empathetic response, it changed the whole ball game. Then on top of that, we've then got this cultural level. We've got your basic evolutionary level. The empathetic level broadly runs along the same lines, but it adds a layer of complexity. Then you've got this cultural level, which again broadly runs along the same lines, but adds another level of complexity. And this is where things like your Bible comes in, there your belief in God, and then you're attributing your morality to God. That all comes down to this cultural, this proximal cultural level that we see now, and that we attribute most of our morality to now. And in one sense, yes, that is where your morality comes from. But ultimately it's not where your morality comes from. Of course, I can now throw this question back to you. Where does your morality come from? I've said on this proximal level it comes from your religion, but let's look into that. Does your morality come from the Bible? There's some pretty nasty parts of the Bible in the same conversation that Moses has with God, where God gives him the 10 Commandments. God also says to Moses, if your children should curse you, kill them. I'm assuming you don't think that's a reasonable thing to do. There's God's prophet walking by, isn't there, walking past some children, and the children are taking a piss out of the prophet, calling him a bald-headed whatever. Okay, what does God do? He sends 2 bears out the woods, murders 42 of the children for disrespecting one of his prophets. I don't think you would regard that as very moral. You have to pick and choose which parts of the Bible you wish to class as moral. So you can't be getting it from the Bible to decide which bits of the Bible are moral. So it has to come from somewhere else. But perhaps God imbues you with that morality as part of your soul. Maybe that's what's happened. But whereas I accept that human beings do have a general common morality, the kind of common morality that human beings have the world over are the kind of morality, the kind of moral decisions that you can easily attribute to evolution, that make sense in an evolutionary context. Your morality, your Christian morality, requires a lot more than that. And it requires a lot of things that really are not common the world over. Treating people equally, treating men and women equally, treating people of different races equally. These are things that are part of your morality, but they aren't morality the world over. They aren't part of some innate human morality. Quite the opposite. If you look around the world, you find that people have quite different ideas on these things. So this can't be in the soul. God can't be giving you this morality in your soul, otherwise people wouldn't be so divergent the world over when it comes to these other issues. It can't be from the Bible, as I've already mentioned, because you've got to pick and choose which bits of the Bible. And I can also say to you, well, where does God get his morality from? Is it just God's arbitrary decision what's moral? If God said to you, torturing babies, Philos71, torturing babies from now on is moral, would you feel happy about that? Would you go out there and start torturing babies? Or is it that God couldn't actually do that? That God is actually constrained, that God isn't actually deciding what's moral or not, that he's just passing it on to you. Is he just a hollow conduit passing the morality on, or does he decide? It's a little bit distasteful, it's a little bit dispiriting either way from your perspective, and I actually think my perspective on morality makes 100 times more sense than a wholly religious perspective.